G'day, Mark from Mustard Bikes here. In the workshop today, we've got this 2025 Yamaha R3. We're going to show you how to fit one of our MT-03 and R3 products to this bike from start to finish. Now, this product fits all the MT-03s and R3s from 2015 onwards. There are a few subtle differences with the earlier models to this 2025, but we'll show you those where we pick up on them on the way through. Before we get started though, we're going to need some tools. This install was filmed with an early release bike. As bike designs are updated and revamped over the years, some aspects of this installation may have changed. Please check our video description below to find out if there are any changes to the installation process shown here. To get the job done, you'll need a Phillips head screwdriver, a small flat blade screwdriver, a 4mm Allen key, a 14mm spanner or socket, a 10mm spanner or socket, and a pair of side cutters. In the box you'll find the card that led you to this video, the link wire, which is different depending on if you have the earlier model or the later models, a bolt pack with a number of nuts and bolts, spacers and washers, and then in amongst all these packing peanuts, wrapped in paper, you'll find the main tail tidy itself. So this has the LED bolt pre-fitted, and then in the very bottom is the cover plate for the tail tidy as well. In the bolt pack you'll find 3 cable ties, these 2 spacers for your indicators, these 4 white spacers, and then you'll find 2 shorter M6 bolts, 2 longer M6 bolts, a countersunk bolt, and a nylock nut. So now we have everything together to finish the job. The first step is to take our key and remove the pillion seat. We now need to remove this infill panel. Now on the earlier models, it's held in by 2 4mm Allen key bolts. So use your 4mm Allen key to remove those. On the 2025, it's just removing these 2 push pins by pushing in the center of the pin. We can then lift the panel out from behind the rider's seat. Next, use your 10mm socket to remove the 2 bolts holding on the rider's seat. On the earlier models, this was an 8mm socket. On the 2025 model, to remove the fuse box, push the clip in the back of the fuse box and then lift the box out of the way. We're also going to lift this little control box out of the way. So we're now ready to remove this glove box tray. This is a feature on all of the models. However, on some of the pre-2025 models, the 2 pins that hold this tray in place are in a slightly different spot, located about midway on the tray. On the very early models, the pins used are a 1/4 turn Phillips head pin. So you just need to get your Phillips head screwdriver, turn the head a 1/4 turn, and then you should be able to pull the pin out. Later models have the push pins the same as this 2025. With the pins removed, you can slide the tray forward and remove it from the bike. So at this point on the pre-2025 models, we have access to everything we need to remove the stock fender. Unlike this 2025, you'll find that the wiring for the pre-25 models is on the side of the frame rail here, wrapped in a silicone sleeve. The plugs will also look slightly different to the 3 that we disconnect here on the 2025. Before we can remove them on the 2025 model though, we need to lift the ECU out of the way. With the ECU out of the way, we can disconnect the 3 plugs. We can now remove the 4 nuts holding on the stock fender using our 10mm socket. Some of these nuts may be hidden under some shrouds. As you remove the last nut, be sure to hold on to the stock fender so it doesn't fall away from the bike. And with that, the stock fender is removed. So we can now move over to the bench and start preparing the tail tidy. To assemble the tail tidy, you're going to need some indicators. If you're fitting aftermarket ones, you can skip these next few steps. If you're fitting the stock ones, we're going to have to disassemble this stock fender. So to do that, we're going to start by flipping it over And we're just going to remove these 4 push pins shown here. That allows us to remove this splash guard and gives us access to these bolts here. Before we pull those out, we're going to use our Phillips head screwdriver to remove the 2 screws up the top here, as well as the 2 screws on either side here. We then use our 4mm Allen key to remove these 6 bolts. So we then separate these 2 halves of the stock fender, like so. This then gives us access to the wiring and the indicators. So we're going to take the 2 wires for the indicators out. Just going to feed these through here. And this one here. We can then proceed to remove the indicators. Now, as we do this, it's important to take note of which one goes on which side. So we'll see here the black one is on the left side of the bike. So to remove these, we just lift up this little rubber tab, pull this clip out, and then once that is out, you can simply pull the indicator out like such. So pull the whole assembly out. I'm just going to stick that on the left side and then of course do the same to the other side. So now we have the indicators removed, we can fit them to the tail tidy. Before we do that, we need to fit these spacers. So we're going to take this left indicator here, again that's the one with the black plug. I'm just going to feed the wire through this spacer, including this little clip. And then we're going to fit this spacer to the indicator itself. So we're going to start on the narrow side, just feed that through and clip it through like this. Now on older models, this rubber can get quite hard. If you're struggling to do this process, it's worth putting this whole rubber section in a mug of hot water for 5 to 10 minutes to help soften the rubber. So we can now continue to fit this to the tail tidy in the same manner. Now, in some cases, the flat blade screwdriver helps just to get this bit through. There we go. And of course, we repeat the same process on the other side. The last step to securing these indicators is to take these little tabs back down and reposition them. Now, while we're here, we're going to undo the wires on this LED bolt. We're going to take one of our cable ties. We're going to run that down this hole underneath the LED bolt here, and then back up the other side. And then take these 2 indicator wires and capture those in with the cable tie. Just going to sit those neatly and then do that cable tie up. Doesn't have to be super tight, it's just to hold those wires in place. And we can then just use our side cutters to trim that cable tie. So we can now fit this tail tidy to the cover plate that also came in the kit. To do that, you're going to need this little countersunk bolt and a nylock nut. So we're going to start by feeding all the wiring through here. Now this can be quite tricky, this hole is quite tight. So you'll see there's this little notch here. Just sit the wire in there as you feed the next plug through. So we're going to feed that all the way through, along with the wire for the LED bolt here. Then position this cover over the top like so. So you'll see these hole lines up here, that's where the countersunk bolt goes through. And then on the other side, we'll pop the nut on there. So we're just going to set this assembly aside for a moment. So the next step is to prepare these spacers. So they may be a little hard to see against the white background here, but we need to prepare these by putting a thread through the center. So we're going to take our 14mm spanner. We're just going to start a bolt in there. We're just going to use our 4mm Allen key to wind that bolt the whole way through. Now you only need to go so far until it comes out the other side by a few millimeters, and then we can wind it back out. And we then do this to all 4 of these spacers. So now we have these spacers prepared, we can go and start to fit the bolts. You'll notice that in the kit you've got 2 smaller bolts and 2 longer bolts. You need to take one of the longer bolts and feed it through one of the holes that goes through both the tail tidy and the cover plate. On the other side, we're then going to fit one of these spacers. So we do the same on the other side, again with the long bolt, and fit another spacer. So we're going to use our 14mm spanner and our Allen key to do those up. So don't do them too tight so you don't strip the thread in the plastic here. And then we can do the same to the rear 2 holes with the shorter 2 bolts. So then the last step is we're just going to tighten up this first bolt that we had using our 10mm spanner or socket and our Phillips head screwdriver. And we're just going to do that one up nice and tight. So with that, this assembly is then ready to fit to the bike. To fit the fender eliminator, we're going to start by feeding this wiring through the access hole here. And then once we have all that wiring through, we're going to pull it all the way through while offering up the tail tidy to the bike. And then once we have that tail tidy in place, we're going to take one of the original nuts and just thread that onto one of the bolts so that it can't fall away. We can now fit the remaining 3 nuts. And then do all 4 nuts up with our 10mm spanner. You may need to use your 4mm Allen key to stop the bolts from spinning. The next step is to reconnect the wiring. The first part of that is to fit the link wire for the number plate light. Now, this is a little bit counterintuitive, but the colour matching goes black to red and red to black. Refit the wiring following the original routing. Now obviously if you have the earlier model, don't do it quite as we've shown here, reroute it the same way as it was when you disconnected it. We can now refit the 3 plugs for the number plate light and the 2 indicators. Now as mentioned earlier, depending on the model bike that you have, the plugs may look slightly different to what we're showing here. Now that we've got everything connected up, we need to go and do a quick safety check. So we're going to take our key, put it in the ignition and turn the bike on. And then we're just going to check that all the lighting's operating correctly, that your number plate light's working and that your indicators are working on the correct sides. Now, if they aren't, with the LED number plate light, the simple check is often to swap those 2 wires on the link wire and that may fix your problem. If your indicators are on the wrong side, the quick fix is to simply swap those plugs over as well and they should be operating on the correct sides. I also like, while I'm here, just quickly check the brake light just as a safety precaution. Now that we know that everything's working correctly, we can continue on. On the 2025 model, that means refitting the ECU before we refit the tray. With the tray in place, we can reinstall the pins. On the 2025, you can reinstall the fuse box and the little control module. Refit the rider's seat, as well as the 2 bolts holding it on. Followed by the infill panel and its 2 push pins. So the final step is to refit the pillion seat, fit your number plate and take your bike for a ride. Now it's a wise idea once you have been for a few rides, just go over everything, make sure all the nuts and bolts are still tight, that your lights are still working correctly, just to make sure. Now, hopefully this video has helped you with the install of your product. If you haven't yet purchased this product and you'd like to, mustardbikes.com. We make a whole range of tail tidies and various other accessories for a whole range of bikes. Don't forget to like and share this video. We love hearing back from our customers, so please get in touch via Facebook, tag us in your pictures on Instagram. We really enjoy seeing how you've gone. Thanks again for watching. Until next time.
Hello. 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 G'day. How you doing?
And remove the rider's seat. The pillion seat. Before we route it. Now we have everything everything goes the same way. No, another time.